Having missed her plane, Veronika bought a needle from a gypsy. "Check your sick husband, and you'll understand everything," the woman had said. Veronika remembered the words and hurried to follow her ailing husband. "Hello, everyone. Take a minute and listen. I want to share a story that might make you see your loved ones differently. Tell me where you're watching from. Enjoy listening." Sheremetyevo Airport was busy and noisy, as usual on a Friday evening. Muscovites were heading to their dachas, business travelers were going home, and tourists were struggling at the check-in counters with huge suitcases. Veronika ran through the crowd, clutching her boarding pass tightly. Her heels clacked loudly on the marble floor, and her heavy bag banged against her hip. She pushed a loose strand of light brown hair behind her ear as she ran. At 45, she still had her natural hair color, something she quietly took pride in. It was probably the only part of her appearance that didn't require much effort, unlike her figure, which she had to monitor obsessively after 40. A female voice came over the speakers, announcing the final boarding call for the flight to Novosibirsk. The tone sounded almost cruel. Veronika picked up speed, her heart racing in her throat. One thought filled her mind. She could not miss this flight. Simply could not. Her mother's 70th birthday was today. This was not an event to miss, especially since she had been postponing this trip for nearly 6 months, always finding new excuses. Being the only daughter, her relationship with her mother was complicated, full of unspoken hurts and barely hidden disappointments. "Wait! Please wait," she shouted, seeing a uniformed airport staff member in a blue skirt firmly close the boarding gate, as if sealing her chances. "Boarding is finished," the woman said coldly, glancing at her watch as if time itself was her ally in keeping late passengers out. "You're 20 minutes late. The plane doors are closed." "But I had reasons." Veronika felt sweat running down her back, her blouse sticking unpleasantly. "My husband suddenly fell ill. I had to call an ambulance." "Isn't there any way to contact the crew?" The airport worker looked at her with that cold indifference of someone who hears thousands of stories like this every day. Behind the woman's icy gaze, Veronika could see the fatigue and apathy. A conveyor belt of human lives, endless rush, the same excuses over and over. "The next flight is tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. See an airline representative to rebook. Desk number 27. She pointed toward the main hall. Tears rose in Veronika's throat. That's always how it goes. Just when you relax and think everything is going according to plan, life trips you up. She pulled out a worn leather phone case from her bag, a gift from Victor last New Year. One of the rare times he had actually picked the right present, and dialed her mother's number, imagining her disappointment. The long ring sounded especially hopeless in the noisy airport. No answer. Probably already preparing for guests, slicing her signature crab stick and canned corn salad, setting the festive table with the old crystal dishes reserved for special occasions. She thought bitterly. "Mom, I'm sorry," Veronika whispered when voicemail picked up. "I missed the flight. I'll come tomorrow, first thing in the morning. I promise." As she trudged toward the airport exit, feeling like a total failure, happy travelers rushed past with suitcases, hugging loved ones, laughing children everywhere. It seemed like the whole world was celebrating Friday, and she was the only one left out. Then a hoarse female voice with a noticeable accent called out to her. "Pretty girl. Wait a moment." Veronika turned, instinctively pressing her bag to her side. By a marble column, as if choosing the shade on purpose, stood a short, plump woman in a long, colorful skirt and a scarf tied in a gypsy style. The bright colors, red, green, yellow, clashed oddly with the gray marble of the airport, looking out of place, like wildflowers in a hospital room. She looked about 60, maybe older. Deep wrinkles cut across her sun-darkened face like a dried-up riverbed. But her dark eyes were sharp and clear, piercing, as if they could see right through people, reading thoughts and memories like an open book. "No, thank you, I'm in a hurry," Veronika replied automatically, quickening her pace and clutching her bag strapped tighter. A thought flashed through her mind, my wallet. I need to hold this bag tighter. I don't need a gypsy adding to my problems right now, she thought irritably. You won't make your plane, the gypsy said with a sly smile, so certain that Veronika couldn't help but slow down. But a big trouble might catch you if you pass by right now. Big trouble, little lady. Veronika stopped, intrigued despite herself. Something in the strange woman's voice made her turn. Maybe it was the unusual tone, or the strange certainty with which she spoke about the plane. Veronika had actually missed it. What do you mean? She asked, already scolding herself for falling for an obvious trick. The gypsy stepped closer, moving slowly, as if she had all the time in the world. She smelled of herbs and something sweet, like childhood memories. Maybe caramel, or little treats her grandmother always kept in a vase on the sideboard, next to crystal glasses and faded family photos in wooden frames. I see your soul is not at peace, the gypsy whispered, almost inaudibly. Veronika had to lean in to hear her over the hum of the airport. And rightly so. Things at home aren't quite right. Your nest isn't strong, stitched with rotten threads. Everyone has problems, Veronika thought, shrugging, but she didn't turn to leave. There was something about this woman that made it impossible to just walk away. A strange authority, a confidence in her words, as if she really knew something important. Your husband, you say, is sick? The gypsy squinted, her eyes narrowing like a well-fed cat's. Oh no, not the kind of sickness doctors treat. Your husband is sick with lies. His heart is eaten away by deceit, like wood gnawed by beetles. Veronika shivered. A chill ran down her spine. The airport worker had really lied. Victor wasn't sick. He had simply been held up at an important meeting and couldn't take her to the airport as he had promised 3 days ago. The taxi she called at the last minute was hopelessly stuck in Friday evening Moscow traffic somewhere near Leningrad Sky Highway. What do you want? Veronika asked tiredly, glancing at her watch. If she left now, maybe she could call her mother on the road and explain. The gypsy reached into a deep pocket in her skirt and pulled out a small bundle, wrapped in dark cloth frayed at the edges. Take this needle, pretty girl, she said, handing Veronika the bundle as if it were a royal treasure. An old one, from my grandmother. Silver with a special little eye. They don't make them like this anymore. When you get home, check your sick husband and you'll understand everything. The needle will show the truth. I don't believe in these things, Veronika said, feeling foolish. Her mother had always said that gypsies were masters of manipulation. And now here she was, falling for it herself. Don't argue, the gypsy interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. Just take it and check. If I'm wrong, throw it away. But if I'm right, at least your eyes will open before it's too late. Veronika didn't know why, but she reached out and took the bundle. Maybe from exhaustion and frustration, or maybe from some strange feeling stirring in her chest. The bundle felt light, almost weightless, but somehow significant. How much do I owe you? She asked, opening her bag and expecting some outrageous price. 3 rubles for luck, the gypsy said with a sly smile, showing uneven teeth, 1 gold, glinting dimly in the airport lights. Veronika handed her 300 rubles, but the woman shook her head, as if the offer was nonsense. 3 rubles, little one. Old or new? Veronika rummaged through her wallet and found a 5-ruble coin. The gypsy took it, tossed it in her hand to check the weight, and Veronika noticed a deep scar running from her wrist to the middle of her palm, like someone had once tried to cut her veins. Keep the change, the gypsy whispered with a mysterious smile. Go with God. And remember, check your husband. The needle will show you the whole truth, no matter how bitter it is. When Veronika turned toward the terminal exit, the gypsy was gone, vanished into the crowd of travelers and rushing people like a desert mirage. For a moment, Veronika even wondered if she had imagined the strange encounter. In the taxi on the way home, watching the evening lights of Moscow flicker by, she unwrapped the bundle. Inside lay a strange, unusual needle, long, silver, with a curious little eye. Faint, intricate patterns ran along its surface, like swirling letters of some unknown alphabet. Veronika snorted and tucked the needle back into her bag, zipping the inner pocket. They really played me for a fool, she thought. But somehow, a strange unease settled in her chest, like a countdown timer had started inside. The taxi stopped in front of her home in Izmayovo. The 12-story building from the 1990s, with peeling plaster and a perpetually broken elevator, looked especially grim in the light of the setting sun. She and Victor had dreamed of moving somewhere nicer. One of those new apartment complexes with security and underground parking popping up all over Moscow. But they could never save enough for the down payment. Victor often said he had a big deal coming that would finally solve all their financial problems. She climbed the stairs to the 7th floor. The elevator hadn't worked for 3 weeks, and no one even tried to fix it. Veronika remembered the gypsy's words, "Check your sick husband, and you'll understand." What nonsense, she thought. Victor had never been a perfect husband, forgetting anniversaries, rarely buying flowers, sometimes drinking too much with friends. But he really had been working hard lately. New partners, projects, endless meetings and negotiations. Today was just unlucky. Everyone has bad days. After all, they had almost 15 years of marriage behind them. Not everything was smooth all the time. But when she opened the apartment door, she froze. Her heart skipped a beat. The hallway light was on, and voices came from the living room, muted, but clear. One of them was definitely her husband, the same one who had called 2 hours earlier, apologizing that he was stuck at an important meeting near Belaruski station and couldn't drive her. The second voice was a man's, deep and hoarse, like someone who smoked a lot. Veronika froze, too afraid to step into her own apartment. Her heart thumped loudly in her throat. Victor's important meeting, it seemed, was happening right here, in their living room. Betrayal hit her like a suffocating wave. She carefully closed the front door, trying not to make a sound, and tiptoed into the hallway. Snippets of conversation drifted out from the living room. "This can't go on," said Victor's voice, low and tense. The other man's voice, metallic and cold, replied, "Deadlines are tight. We don't have time to wait. I understand, Mihailovich. I understand everything." Veronika heard in her husband's voice, a tone she had never noticed before, almost pleading, begging. "Another week, maybe 2 at most. The money will be ready. I'm telling you for the last time." 2 weeks, the guest cut in sharply. "After that, don't come asking me for forgiveness." Veronika quietly crept down the hallway and peeked through the narrow gap between the slightly open door and the frame. In the living room sat 2 men, her husband, hunched, with a pathetic smile, and a large man of about 50, with short, graying hair and a square jaw. He was dressed expensively, but tastelessly, leather jacket, a heavy gold chain around his neck. "Shall we have a drink?" Victor said, jumping up to pour whiskey into a glass. "To a successful deal. Don't fuss." The man drank it in one gulp without flinching. And why did he send his wife to Siberia? To hide her from us, clearly. Victor laughed nervously. "It's my mother's 70th birthday. You know, I could not go." But he hadn't gone himself? Or was he too afraid to step away from the deal? Veronika felt fury rising in her chest. He had lied to her, not just today. He had used her mother's birthday as an excuse for some shady business. "Check your sick husband." The gypsy's words flashed in her mind. Instinctively, she felt for the strange needle in her bag. "Come on, Mihailovich." Victor's voice sounded pathetic now. "I just need to meet an important client. A big order is coming." "Yeah, sure," the guest snorted. "And that client must be the same scum you owe $1.5 million to." "Cut the lies, Victor. We know everything about you." Veronika stepped back from the door, pressing her hand to her mouth. $1.5 million? Victor owed someone that much?
How?
Their family budget barely covered bills, and only sometimes allowed a cheap vacation in Turkey. "I know what I'm doing," her husband said, sounding more confident. "I've got it all under control. The money will be ready soon." "Good," the guest said. "Very good. You know, family is sacred. It'd be a shame if something happened." It was a clear threat. Veronika stepped into the bathroom and quietly closed the door. She was shaking. Who was this man? Who is Sidoy, and where did this huge debt come from? She turned on the water to mask her presence and pressed her forehead against the cool tiles. She took the needle from her bag and twirled it in her hands. What had the gypsy meant by check your husband? How can you check a person with a needle? Her eyes fell on the laundry basket, where Victor's shirt lay, the one he had worn to the business dinner yesterday. Acting on a strange impulse, Veronika picked it up and examined the collar carefully. Lipstick marks? No, nothing. She ran her fingers over the pockets. Empty. Then she took the needle and, without fully understanding why, carefully poked the sleeve. To her surprise, the needle seemed to move toward the inner seam on its own. When Veronika held the shirt up to the light, she noticed that one seam looked different from the others, as if something had been sewn inside. She took a pair of manicure scissors and carefully opened the seam. Inside was a tiny paper bundle. Her hands shaking, she unwrapped it and saw a few strange-looking pills and a scrap of paper with a phone number. Her husband was hiding drugs in his clothes, or were these some kind of illegal substances? Her head was spinning. At that moment, she heard the front door click. The guest had left, and then she heard her husband's footsteps heading toward the bathroom. Veronika. Victor's surprised voice came from behind the door. You're home? What about the plane? She quickly stuffed the needle and the bundle into the pocket of the robe hanging on the hook and splashed water on her face. Missed it, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. The taxi had been stuck in traffic. The door opened, and Victor appeared in the doorway. A tall man, 48 years old, with a neat beard, streaks of gray, and thinning hair he tried to hide with a careful hairstyle. She had once found him attractive, but now she only noticed the bags under his eyes and the nervous smile. Oh, too bad, he said without looking at her. Your mother will probably be upset. And you don't seem too upset, Veronika couldn't help saying. Looks like you had your own little meeting here. Victor tensed, but quickly composed himself. Oh, a colleague came by to pick up some documents. I told you I was working today. Just a colleague. Veronika felt anger boiling inside her. Gold chains, secret meetings, lies. Her husband's face hardened, becoming distant and unfamiliar. You were eavesdropping, he asked. I came home and heard the conversation, she replied firmly, in my own apartment, by the way. Who is this man, Victor? And who do you owe $1.5 million to? Victor looked around, searching for a way out, then sighed heavily and went into the bedroom. Veronika followed, keeping the bundle in the robe pocket. It's hard to explain, he began, sitting on the edge of the bed and holding his head in his hands. Try, Veronika said, crossing her arms. I have time. I already missed my plane. I owe money to someone, Victor admitted quietly. A large sum. I invested in a deal, but it all went wrong. What kind of deal? Veronika felt nausea rise in her throat. Are you gambling? Betting? No, he said, lifting his head. I'm not that kind of fool. It was business. A profitable contract for $1.5 million, Victor said. Veronika shook her head in disbelief. Where did you get that kind of money? Victor stayed silent, avoiding her eyes. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Vitya, she said softly. Did you take a loan? Did you put our apartment up as collateral? No, he said, staring at the floor. I borrowed it from Sidov, with interest. Veronika stared at him in horror. You went to gangsters? Are you out of your mind? He's not a gangster, Victor protested weakly. He's a businessman. He just has his own methods. And what are those methods? She shouted, clenching her fists. Threatening the debtor's family? I heard everything, Vitya. That Mihailovich clearly hinted something could happen to me. Victor jumped up and grabbed her shoulders. Nothing will happen to you. I'll handle everything. I have a plan. What plan? She yelled, pulling away. Selling drugs. She pulled the paper bundle with the pills from the robe pocket. Victor's face went pale with shock. Where did you get that? He whispered. From your shirt, she replied, stepping toward the door. Drugs? Yes. Victor shook his head. No, these aren't drugs. They're pills to improve work performance. They help you focus. Many businessmen take them. That's why I hide them in my shirt lining. Veronika laughed bitterly. Vitya, who do you think I am? At that moment, Victor's phone rang. He looked at the screen and went pale. I need to take this, he muttered, leaving the room. Veronika stood there, stunned. Her life was collapsing before her eyes. The husband she had lived with for almost 15 years wasn't the man she thought he was. He owed money to gangsters, was involved with shady pills. And what else did she not know about him? From the hallway, she could hear Victor's muffled voice. Yes, I understand. No, everything will be on time. Of course, I'm in control. Something told her she needed to dig deeper. She went to the cabinet and opened a drawer with documents. Marriage certificate, insurance papers, old receipts, and a folder with bank statements. She flipped through the pages and froze at unfamiliar numbers. Large sums had been withdrawn regularly from their joint account, the account where her music teacher's salary went, not just in recent months, but for several years. Needle, check, the gypsy's words echoed in her mind. The needle had helped reveal the first secret. What else could it show? Veronika sat on the edge of the bed, examining the bank statements. Over the last 3 years, more than 1 million rubles had disappeared from their account. 1 million! She had thought they simply couldn't save enough for a new apartment because Victor's income was unstable. Every time she mentioned a big purchase, he would shake his head and say, Not now, Veronika. Wait until things pick up. And meanwhile, what had he been doing with that money? Veronika frantically ran through possibilities. Gambling, another woman, or those pills he hid in his shirt lining. When did their life turn into a crime movie? The phone call in the hallway ended, and Veronika quickly put the documents back in the folder. A moment later, Victor came into the room, his face flushed red. We need to talk, he said without any introduction. I'm listening, Veronika said, trying to keep her voice calm, though inside she was boiling. Victor nervously rubbed the bridge of his nose, a gesture she knew well. He always did that when he was about to lie. I really did borrow money from Georgy Sidov, the man everyone calls Sidoi. He funds different projects. I had a very promising idea, an eco-friendly plastic recycling technology. We could have made a lot of money. And what happened? Veronika asked. We got cheated, Victor said, shrugging. The partner ran off with the money. The equipment was faulty. In short, everything went wrong. He spoke quickly, avoiding her eyes. Veronika felt the familiar cold distrust that had settled between them in recent years. Strange that she only noticed it now. And the pills, she asked. Why do you hide them? He shrugged carelessly. They help with mental focus. They're not fully legal in Russia, so I had to get them through contacts. That's why I hid them in the shirt lining. I didn't want you to worry. He tried to smile, but it came out awkward. And the money from our account. Veronika pulled out the bank statements. Where did 1 million go, Vitya? He went pale. You went through my documents? Our documents, she corrected. It's our joint account. I put my salary in there too, by the way. Victor ran his fingers through his hair, another familiar sign, a mark of extreme nervousness. I needed the money to fund the project, he said hesitantly. I plan to pay it back with interest once it worked out. And how much do you owe this Sidoi now? 1.5 million, he admitted, looking away. Plus interest, she pressed. Yes, more than that, he said, his voice trembling. Veronika felt a wave of despair wash over her. How much, Vidya? About 2.5 million as of today, he confessed, his voice cracking. But I have a plan, he added. Mihailovich said Sidoi is willing to wait another 2 weeks. And what are you planning to do? Rob a bank. Veronika couldn't hide the sarcasm in her voice. I have a tip for a good deal, Victor said, suddenly alive, his eyes shining with a feverish excitement. One of my contacts, Stas, offered me a chance to participate in a shipment of electronics from abroad. No customs, you see? Clean profit could be 3 or 4 times the investment. Smuggling. Veronika stared at him in horror. You're going into smuggling? It's not as bad as it sounds, he said, sitting next to her on the bed. Just a small way around customs rules. Everyone does it. Veronika looked at Victor and didn't recognize the man she had married. Her husband, a middle manager at a construction materials company, was about to get involved in smuggling just to pay off gangsters. "This is surreal," she whispered. "And if it fails? If your deal falls through like the last one, then what?" Victor stayed silent, and the silence spoke louder than any words. "They threatened me," he muttered. Veronika realized it. That's why he insisted she fly to her mother's place. He wanted to get her out of the way. "I wanted to protect you," he added quietly. "Sidoe doesn't joke when it comes to money." At that moment, the doorbell rang. They both jumped. "Are you expecting someone?" Veronika whispered. Victor shook his head. His face was pale with fear. "No one. Maybe the neighbors?" The bell rang again, more insistently. Victor stood up and walked stiffly to the door. Veronika followed, her hand clutching the silver needle in her pocket. At the door stood a stocky man in a leather jacket and dark glasses. Even though it was evening, Veronika immediately knew this was no neighbor. "Viktor Nikolaevich?" the man asked. "Yes," Victor said, his voice tight and tense. "Come with me. We need to talk." The stranger spoke softly, barely moving his lips. "Where?" Victor grabbed the doorframe. "I'm not going anywhere. Don't cause problems." The stranger slightly opened his jacket, and Veronika froze in horror at the sight of a pistol handle. "Sidoe is waiting." "Just to talk," the man said. "Veronika," Victor said in a hoarse whisper. "Don't turn around. Close the door. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back soon." He stepped out, and the door slammed shut. Veronika ran to the window. From the 7th floor, she could see the courtyard below. She caught a glimpse of Victor being pushed into a black Mercedes. Her mind was racing with only one thought. What should I do? Call the police? They won't believe some story about a mysterious gangster named Sidoe who just took her husband. And what if they hurt him because of her call? Veronika paced the apartment, unable to sit still. Everything felt unreal, like she had stepped into a cheap action movie. That morning, she had been just a normal woman, rushing to catch a plane to celebrate her mother's birthday. And now, her phone rang. "Mama" appeared on the screen. Veronika took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "Hi, Mom." "Veronika, where are you?" "The plane landed hours ago, and you're not here," her mother said, sounding worried. Veronika froze. What could she say? "Mom, I missed the plane, and then I found out my husband owes money to gangsters, and he's just been taken by people with guns." Instead, she said quietly, "I missed the flight. I'll come tomorrow morning." What happened? Her mother, as always, sensed something was wrong. "You sound strange. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just tired," Veronika lied. "Traffic in Moscow was terrible," she explained, "and getting home had been slow." "And Victor," she added carefully. "He had a business meeting," she said, words catching in her throat. On a Friday evening, her mother's voice carried a hint of suspicion. "He's having a lot of these meetings lately," she said. Mom had never hidden the fact that she thought Victor wasn't the best match for her daughter. "He's a bit slippery, eyes always wandering," her mother used to say. Maybe her mother's heart sensed things Veronika had ignored for years. "I'll call you back later, Mom." "All right," her mother said. Veronika felt tears threatening to spill. She still had to sort out the tickets. Hanging up, she sank onto the sofa and buried her face in her hands. What now? Where should she run? Who could she turn to for help? Something nudged her in her pocket. The silver needle. She pulled it out and twirled it in her fingers. "Check your husband," the gypsy had said. What had she checked and discovered things she hadn't wanted to know? Suddenly, an idea struck her. In the same bag in the inner pocket was a business card for Andrei Salmov, an old family friend. He had once worked in the prosecutor's office, and now it seemed he was in a special police unit. They hadn't spoken in years, but maybe he could help, or at least give advice. Veronika found the card and dialed the number. After a few rings, a familiar baritone voice answered. Salmov listened. "Andrei, it's Veronika. Veronika Litvinova, well, Ryabanina now." "Veronika." His voice held surprise. "Long time no see. What's happened?" "Yes." She fought back tears. "Something happened. I really need your help. I'm listening. His tone became serious. My husband, some people just took him. Maybe gangsters. He owes a large sum to someone called Sidoy. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Georgy Sadov? Andrei finally asked. Tall, gray beard. I don't know. I haven't seen him, Veronika admitted. I only know everyone calls him Sidoy. Andrei's voice tightened. If it's the one I'm thinking of, this is serious. Sadov is one of Moscow's main synthetic drug suppliers. We've been tracking him for a long time, but we don't have enough proof. A chill ran down Veronika's spine. Drugs? Could it be the pill she had found? Andrei, I found some pills with my husband, she said quickly, stumbling over her words. He said they were for mental focus. Where are they now? Andrei asked sharply. With me. Veronika pulled the small package from her robe pocket. What should I do? Don't go anywhere. Don't show them to anyone, Andrei said firmly. I'll be there in an hour. And, Veronika, be careful. If these are Sadov's people, this isn't a joke. When the call ended, Veronika felt frozen in place. Drugs. Her husband was involved with drug dealers. All these years, she had lived beside someone she didn't really know. She got up and walked to the cabinet where their wedding photos stood. Happy, smiling faces. She in a white lace dress they had chosen together with her mother. Victor in a sharp suit, hair slicked back. Back then, he hadn't yet started losing his hair. 15 years ago, life felt whole. On that day, she had been completely sure she had found her person, that a long, happy life awaited them, with children, a house in the countryside, and a garden full of apple and cherry trees. But they never had children. At first, they postponed having kids because of their careers. Then came health problems. And after that, they just stopped talking about it like so many other things. When did their relationship become so empty? When did that wall of silence and unspoken words grow between them? And most importantly, when did Victor turn down this dark path? Or was he always like this and she just didn't want to see it? Veronika picked up a photograph and ran her finger over her husband's smiling face. Who are you really, Vidya? And what am I supposed to do now? Suddenly, her eyes caught a strange detail. In the background of the photo, behind them, stood a man she had never noticed before. Tall, with a beard and sharp eyes. He was looking straight at the camera, as if he knew she would be staring at this picture 15 years later. Veronika held the photo up to the light. Something about this man seemed familiar. She tried to remember where she had seen him before. And then it hit her. She ran to her laptop and opened social media. A few searches later, and there it was, Georgy Sadov, businessman, philanthropist, owner of a chain of gyms and restaurants. On the photo was the same man from the wedding picture, only older now, with a fully gray beard. Victor had known Sadov even before their wedding, but why had he never mentioned him? And why was this man at their wedding? The doorbell rang, and Veronika jumped. Had Andrei arrived so quickly? Or were these Sadov's people back for her? Veronika froze, staring at the door. Her heart pounded in her throat. Who was there? Andrei couldn't have come so fast. Or maybe it was Sadov's people. Or maybe neighbor Babazina? She always shows up to borrow salt at the worst possible time. Who's there? Veronika asked without moving closer. Veronika Sergeevna, said an unfamiliar male voice. Please open the door. Police. She looked through the peephole. 2 men in plain clothes were standing on the landing. One of them held a badge. Show your documents again, she asked. The man obediently held the badge up to the peephole. Major Vasilyev, Department of Drug Control. Veronika's heart skipped a beat. She slowly opened the door, leaving the chain on. What do you need? She asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Veronika Sergeevna, we need to talk about your husband, Viktor Nikolaevich Ryabnin, said the major. May we come in? How did you find out? Andrei Pavlovich Somov informed us about your call, explained the second man. He's currently in another district on an operation, but he'll be here later. The department doesn't allow delays. Veronika hesitated. Could she trust them? But if Andrei had sent them, then it was probably okay. She unhooked the chain and stepped aside. The men entered the apartment. Major Vasilyev was tall and fit, with short hair and an attentive gaze. His colleague, younger with a neat beard, introduced himself as Lieutenant Klimov. "Where are the substances you found?" Vasilyev asked without any small talk. Veronika took the small paper bundle from her robe pocket and handed it to the major. "I found this in my husband's shirt lining." Vasilyev carefully unwrapped it and nodded to his colleague. Klimov took a small case with chemical testing tools from his bag. "This is methylene dioxypyrovalerone," the lieutenant said after a quick test. "Known as bath salts on the street, a very strong synthetic drug." "But my husband said they were nootropics," Veronika said, confused and nervous. "Classic excuse from traffickers," Vasilyev explained calmly. "Veronika Sergeyevna, where is your husband now?" "They took him," she said, feeling a lump rise in her throat. "A man came for him about an hour ago. He had a gun." "Describe this man," Vasilyev asked, pulling out a notebook. "Stocky, leather jacket, dark glasses. They left in a black Mercedes. I saw it from the window. He didn't say where they were going, only that Sidoy wanted to talk." Veronika sank into a chair, suddenly feeling weak. "Is it true that Sadov is a drug dealer?" she asked. The officers exchanged a look. How do you know that name?" Vasilyev asked cautiously. Veronika hesitated. She didn't want to mention that she had been searching online. It would sound strange. "Andrei said his name is Georgy Sadov." "Is that correct?" the major asked. "Yes," Veronika nodded. "Georgy Sadov is well known in certain circles as Sidoy," the major continued. "Officially, he's a successful businessman, owner of a chain of gyms and restaurants. Unofficially, he's one of the biggest suppliers of synthetic drugs in Moscow and the region." "And my husband," Veronika couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence. "Apparently, your husband works for Sadov," Lieutenant Klimov said gently. "Possibly as a distributor." Veronika remembered the pills hidden in her husband's shirt, his regular business meetings, his nervous behavior. Lately, everything was starting to make a terrifying picture. "But why?" she whispered. "He has a good job, a normal salary." "Unfortunately, many people fall for it," Vasilyev sighed. "They start small, thinking they can make money quickly, and then they can't get out of it." Veronika suddenly remembered the photograph. "Wait," she said, standing and picking up their wedding photo from the table. "Look, this person in the background, is that Sadov?" The major studied the photo carefully and nodded. "Yes, that's him. 15 years ago, according to the date on the frame." "How did he get to your wedding?" "I don't know." Veronika shook her head. "I never noticed him in the photo before, and my husband never mentioned knowing him." "Interesting," Vasilyev said, taking a picture of the photo with his phone. "This could be an important clue." At that moment, Veronika's phone rang. The screen showed Vitya. She looked at the police, confused. "Answer it," Vasilyev nodded. "Just put it on speaker." Veronika pressed the speaker button. "Hello." Her voice trembled. "Veronika," her husband's voice sounded strange, like he was in a large empty room. "Listen carefully, and don't interrupt." "Okay," she whispered, looking at the major, who gestured for her to continue. "You need to take the money," Victor said quickly. "Under the floorboard by the wardrobe in the bedroom, there's 200,000. Go to Stas. I'll text you the address. Give him the money, and tell him I want to activate Plan B. He'll understand," Vidya said. "What's going on?" Veronika couldn't hold back. "Where are you?" "Doesn't matter," he cut her off. "Do exactly as I said. It's our only chance." "Chance for what?" she asked. "To stay alive." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Sidoy knows about the needle, Veronika. He knows what you found, and he's very angry." Veronika felt a chill run through her. How could Sadov know about the needle? And what did he mean by, "he knows what you found"? "Vitya, wait." "No time," he interrupted. "Do as I said and be careful. Someone might be watching you." The call ended. Veronika stared at the phone, horrified. "What needle?" Vasilyev asked. "And what did you find?" Veronika pulled out the silver needle and told them about the strange meeting with the gypsy woman at the airport. Sounds like some kind of sign, Lieutenant Klimov said thoughtfully. Or a coded signal. What's plan B? Vasilyev asked. And who's Stas? I don't know, Veronika admitted honestly. Her husband had mentioned a man named Stas in connection with smuggling electronics. He said it was their chance to pay off Sadov. The major tapped his fingers on the table. We need to check what's under the floorboard, he said. Show us exactly where, Vasilyev added. They went to the bedroom. Veronika pointed to the spot near the wardrobe. Somewhere here, but I never knew about a hidden compartment. Lieutenant Klimov knelt and examined the floor carefully. One of the boards wasn't nailed down. He lifted it gently and pulled out a shallow niche. Inside was a sealed envelope. This doesn't look like 200,000, Veronika said. Vasilyev carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a USB flash drive and a note. In case something happens to me, Veronika, forgive me. This is the only way to fix everything. What's on the flash drive? Veronika asked. Let's find out, Vasilyev said. He pulled a laptop from his pocket and plugged in the drive. It contained only one folder with documents, bank statements, transactions, photos of meetings with people including Sadov, and a single video file. Vasilyev started the video. On the screen was Victor, sitting at their kitchen table. Judging by the date in the corner, the recording was from 3 days ago. If you're watching this, Veronika, things have gone very wrong, Victor said from the screen. I want you to know the truth. I'm not who I pretended to be all these years. 15 years ago, I went undercover in Sadov's organization on a special services assignment. My job was to gather evidence of his criminal activities. But something went wrong. I fell in love with you for real, Veronika, and decided to leave the game and start a new life. Veronika stared at the screen in shock. Victor, a secret agent? This had to be a joke. Sadov found out I was a double agent, Victor continued on the video. And now he's threatening you. I had to protect you, which is why I insisted you go to your mother. On this flash drive are all the pieces of evidence I collected against Sadov over the years. Give them to Andrei at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. He's the only one you can trust. Also, find the gypsy woman with the silver needle. She's our undercover agent. She'll help you hide. Code phrase. The needle found the heart. Forgive me for everything, Veronika. I loved you. Truly. The video ended. A heavy silence filled the room. What nonsense is this? Veronika finally exhaled. Victor isn't a secret agent. This must be some stupid joke. Doesn't sound like a joke, but it doesn't sound like the truth either, Vasilyev said thoughtfully. Then what is it? The major closed the laptop. Maybe your husband is trying to get out of trouble. Made up this story to explain his involvement with Sadov. Or maybe it's part of some plan. Either way, we need to find this Stas. Veronika's phone beeped. A message from Victor showed an address, a warehouse on the edge of the city. We'll go there, Vasilyev decided. But first, we wait for Samov. If your husband's story is true and the special services are involved, we'll need support. What if it's a trap? Veronika asked. What if they're trying to lure me there? We'll be close, Lieutenant Klimov reassured her. Nothing will happen to you. Veronika stepped to the window. Her mind was spinning from all this information. Who had she really lived with for 15 years? A criminal working for a drug lord, a secret undercover agent, or someone else entirely? And who was the gypsy woman with the silver needle? A random scammer at the airport, or an actual Secret Service agent? Veronika remembered the moment she had felt the hidden seam in Victor's shirt. Veronika felt a strange pull, like the needle was guiding her to this moment. If she hadn't met the gypsy, if she hadn't taken the needle, she would never have known the truth about her husband. The needle found the heart, she repeated silently, thinking of the words from the video. What did it really mean? The doorbell rang. Major Vasilyev cautiously peered through the peephole. It's Samov, he said and opened the door. Andrei stood there, looking much older than the last time she'd seen him, but with the same firm gray eyes. Veronika, he nodded to her. then turned to the others. What do we have? Vasilyev quickly explained the situation and showed Victor's video. Complete nonsense. Samov shook his head. There are no secret agents involved with Sadov.
None.
I've been on this case from the start. Could it be another service? Suggested Lieutenant Klimov. FSB, Foreign Intelligence. No chance, Samov cut him off. We have full coordination on the Sadov case. It's just made-up nonsense to cover tracks.
Why?
Veronika asked. Why would Victor make up such a complicated story? Samov shrugged. Maybe so you would believe it and hand over the flash drive. Maybe the files aren't even what we saw. Could be a virus, a program that would destroy data on our servers. Sadov works with very advanced hackers. Veronika felt her stomach drop. So it was true. Victor, a criminal working for the drug lord. All these years, she had lived with a man she didn't really know. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Victor. Time was running out. If you don't show up within an hour, Sadov will kill me. Please, Veronika. For everything we had. She showed the message to the police. This could be a trap, Vasilyev said. But if your husband is really in danger, we go, Sama decided. But you stay in the car, Veronika. It's too dangerous. No, she shook her head. If it's a trap, they're waiting for me. You won't fool them. We can't risk a civilian, Vasilyev argued. They won't believe I came alone, Veronika insisted. But they might believe I called a taxi. One of you can pretend to be the driver. The officers exchanged looks. That makes sense, Samov admitted reluctantly. Klimov, do you have a civilian car? Yes, an old Toyota. Perfect. You'll be the taxi driver. Vasilyev and I will cover the outside, Samov said. Veronika nodded, feeling a strange calm. This morning, she had been just an ordinary middle-aged woman rushing to catch a plane. Now she was preparing for a police operation. She looked at the silver needle again. The needle found the heart. Whatever that meant, she hoped today she would get some answers. Lieutenant Klimov's old Toyota slowly drove through an industrial area on the edge of Moscow. Veronika sat in the back, nervously holding the silver needle. Outside, dull fences, half-ruined Soviet-era buildings, and modern warehouses with bright signs passed by. Almost there, Klimov said, glancing at the GPS. Do you remember the plan? Yes, Veronika nodded. I go inside, say I came at my husband's request. If Victor is there, I find out what's happening. If not, I stall until you give the signal. And no improvising, the lieutenant reminded her. At the first sign of danger, say the code phrase. I'll need to go back to the car for my phone. Veronika nodded again, her throat dry. What was she doing? Driving straight into a meeting with drug dealers, people with guns. This morning, her biggest problem had been making her flight to her mother's birthday. The Toyota stopped in front of a gray building with a sign, Lux Auto Parts. The place looked normal. Nothing seemed threatening. No signs of illegal activity. We'll stay in contact, Klimov said, handing her a tiny earpiece. Samov and Vasilyev are in position. They can see and hear everything. If needed, the SWAT team will be here in a minute. Veronika put the earpiece in her ear and got out of the car. Her legs felt like jelly, but she forced herself toward the store entrance. Strangely, she wasn't scared, just numb and wishing it was over. The bell rang as she opened the door. Inside, it was just a normal auto parts store. Shelves with boxes, a counter, and a bored young man with a stylish beard behind it. Good evening, he said, looking up from his phone. How can I help you? Veronika hesitated. I need Stas. Victor Rebenin sent me. The young man's expression changed instantly. He straightened up and studied Veronika carefully. Do you have ID? He asked. Veronika handed him her passport. He looked at it closely, then nodded and pressed a button under the counter. A door opened in the back of the store. One Veronika had thought was just part of the shelving. Come through, he said. Stanislav Mihailovich is expecting you. Veronika stepped through the door into a narrow hallway that ended with another door. Her heart was pounding, but she forced herself to keep walking. Behind the second door was a spacious office with modern furniture, the complete opposite of the dull little store. At the desk sat a tall man, around 50, with a neatly trimmed beard and sharp eyes. "Veronika Sergeyevna," he said, standing to greet her. "Finally, I'm Stanislav Vershinin." "Where's my husband?" she asked, looking around. "He called me and said to come here." "Have a seat," Stas said, pointing to a chair across from him. "We don't have much time." Veronika sat down carefully, keeping her eyes on him. "Victor used to work in one of our safe houses," Stas continued. "The situation is critical." "Who are you?" Veronika felt anger rising. "What do you have to do with my husband?" I was his handler," Stas said calmly. "Until things went wrong." "Handler?" Veronika frowned. "So it's true," she whispered. "Victor really was an agent." Stas nodded. "We placed him inside Sidorov's organization 15 years ago. Operation Needle. Victor's mission was to gather evidence of Sidorov's criminal activity and connections with the international drug cartel. But Andrei Samov said there were no secret agents in the Sidorov case, Veronika said. "Of course he did." Stas smiled slightly. "He didn't know. This was an operation by a different agency, not the police, and very few people knew about it." Veronika felt her head spin. So Victor hadn't lied in his video message. He really had been a secret agent all these years. "But then, our marriage," she asked softly. "Was that part of the operation too?" Stas paused, choosing his words carefully. "Originally? Yes," he finally said. Sidorov watched everyone closely. Victor needed a believable cover, wife, family life. Everything made him less suspicious. Veronika felt a tear roll down her cheek. 15 years of her life had been a lie. Everything she thought was real had been part of some secret operation. But then everything changed, Stas continued. "Victor really fell in love with you and started sabotaging the operation." "What do you mean, sabotaging?" "He stopped passing along important information, tried to find a way out of the mission, asked to be moved to another assignment, away from Sidorov. He said he wanted a normal life with you." Veronika listened silently, unsure if she could trust him. It all sounded like a cheap detective story. But on the other hand, hadn't her whole life lately, drugs, gangsters, secret hiding spots, felt just like a cheap detective story? "What happened today?" she asked. "Why did they take Victor?" "Sidorov found out who he really was," Stas said, tapping his fingers on the table. "We have a mole inside the organization. And the mole gave Victor away. Now Sidorov wants to know what evidence we've collected against him and who else in his group works for the authorities." "So what now?" "Now we need the flash drive." Stas leaned forward. "Victor said he left it with you. It has all the evidence he gathered over 15 years. Names, dates, amounts, recorded conversations. With it, we can not only catch Sidorov but destroy his entire network." A voice came through her earpiece. "Don't trust him, Veronika."
"Buy time."
"We're almost certain who he is," Samov said. Veronika coughed, trying to hide her fear. "I have the flash drive in my bag," she lied. "But first, I need to know where Victor is and what will happen to him." "He's in one of Sidorov's restaurants," Stas said. "The old mill on Vorobyovy Hills, in the wine cellar. Once we get the flash drive, the rescue operation begins." "Vorobyovy Hills, the old mill," the earpiece repeated. "We're checking the info." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Veronika asked. "What if you work for Sidorov? What if you're the mole?" Stas smiled. "Smart woman." "Victor didn't fall in love with you for nothing," Stas said. He opened a desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph, handing it to Veronika. "Do you recognize this?" In the photo, Victor looked much younger in a military uniform. Next to him stood Stas, also in uniform, with captain's epaulets. "We served together," Stas explained. "Even before Operation Needle. Victor saved my life during a mission in the Caucasus. Since then, I've owed him everything." The earpiece buzzed again. Veronika S. Vershinin, former intelligence officer, now works in private security. "Connection to Sidorov case is being verified," Samov's voice said. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Veronika asked. "If Victor is in danger?" "Because we don't know who to trust," Stas shook his head. Sidorov has bought off many people in different organizations, even in the police. Don't fall for his tricks, Samov warned in the earpiece. He's trying to confuse you. I don't have the flash drive with me, Veronika finally said. It's at home. I need to go get it.
There's no time, Stas said.
Sidorov set a deadline midnight. After that, he'll start sending Victor in pieces. Veronika shivered at the words. Then let's go to my place, she offered. It's nearby. Fine, Stas agreed. But not in your taxi. I have a car with a driver. He suspects something, Vasilyev said in the earpiece. Be careful. I'll warn the driver, Veronika said, standing up. I booked him through the app. He'll wait. I'll take care of it, Stas said, heading to the door. Stay here. I'm going to Klimov. Selma's voice in her earpiece sounded tense. Be ready for the operation. Veronika was left alone in the office. What should she do?
Run? But where?
And what if Stas is telling the truth, and Victor really is in danger? Suddenly, her eyes fell on Stas's computer. The screen wasn't locked. Maybe there's some information there? Veronika carefully walked to the desk and looked at the monitor. An email was open, some documents, and a photo. It was recent, the date said today. In the photo, Victor was beaten, hands tied, in a dark room. Next to him was Stas, and both of them were smiling at the camera. Was it staged? Veronika felt a chill run down her spine. Maybe things were much more complicated than they seemed. Suddenly, the door swung open. Stas appeared in the doorway. His face had changed. There was no friendliness left. Interesting job you have, taxi driver, he said, and a gun gleamed in his hand. His police ID and service weapon were also visible. An operation. A voice screamed in her earpiece. All units, begin the capture. Outside came gunshots and shouting. Stas moved toward the window, and at that instant, following some instinct, Veronika pulled the silver needle from her pocket and stabbed it hard into Stas's arm. He yelled in shock and pain. His gun fell to the floor. Veronika ran toward the door, but Stas grabbed her by the hair. Stop, he growled. You're not. Before he could finish, the door was smashed open. People in black uniforms with police written on them stormed in. They knocked Stas to the floor and pinned his arms behind his back. Veronika Sergeyevna, are you okay? Samov ran to her. Yes, she gasped, struggling to catch her breath. But Victor, there's a photo on the computer. He's in danger. Samov rushed to the computer and quickly looked at the photos. They're staged, he said. See here? The edge of a green screen is visible. It's Photoshop and not very good. So, Victor isn't with Sidorov. Veronika's legs went weak. I'm afraid not, Samov said, supporting her under the arm. But we will find him. Right now, you need to get out of here. The operation isn't over. He led her outside, where police cars with flashing lights were already gathered. Lieutenant Klimov stood by his old Toyota, wiping blood from a cut eyebrow. Alive? Veronika asked. I'll live, he smirked. Good thing I have a tough skull, Veronika muttered. What's happening? She asked, turning to Samov. Who are all these people? And where's Victor? Stas and his men work for Sidorov, Samov explained. They wanted the flash drive with the evidence. And my husband? Before Samov could answer, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the gypsy from the airport, the same one who had sold Veronika the silver needle. Did it work? She asked Samov. Did you get them? Veronika froze in surprise. You know Andrew? She asked. Of course I know him. The gypsy smiled, and suddenly her voice had no accent. We've been working together for 10 years. This is Elena Vorontsova, Samov introduced her. One of our best operatives. She's been watching you since the airport. So the meeting with her wasn't a coincidence. Veronika felt a chill inside. It was all staged, just like everything else. I'm very sorry, Veronika, Samov said, putting a hand on her shoulder. We've been watching your husband for a long time. He's been working for Sidorov for many years, selling drugs disguised as nootropics, laundering money through fake companies, but the story about him being an undercover agent, that's a lie. He made up the story when he realized he was about to be caught, Somov continued. He wanted to use you to get access to the evidence and destroy it. And the silver needle? Veronika pulled the needle from her pocket, the one that had just saved her life. It was a way to make you search, Elena explained. We knew the drugs and documents were hidden in your apartment, but we needed you to find them yourself. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had legal grounds for a search. So, everything, Veronika gestured around, was staged from the start. Am I missing the flight? No, Somov shook his head. That was just luck. We planned to act later, when you returned from your mother's. But when you missed the flight, we decided to use the opportunity. Veronika stared at them silently. Her whole life was falling apart. Her husband was a criminal. She had been used as a pawn in someone else's game, while the person she thought of as an old family friend had been watching her all along. Where's Victor? She finally asked. We don't know yet, Somov admitted, but we'll find him soon. Stas will talk once he realizes he's facing life in prison. They began leading the arrested people out of the building, about 10 in total, including Stas and the shop clerk. All of them had handcuffs and grim faces. And Sidorov? Veronika asked. Will you catch him too? Absolutely, Somov nodded. Thanks to you, we now have all the evidence. The flash drive you found has 5 years of the cartel's accounting, names, amounts, lab addresses. Sidorov's finished. Veronika watched the busy police operation and felt a strange emptiness inside. Just this morning, her life had been normal. She was a music teacher she loved, had a husband she thought she knew, and plans for the future. And now, what happens to me? She whispered. You'll be taken home, Somov said. Tomorrow, you'll come to give a statement. After that, you can start a new life. Without lies. Veronika nodded. A new life without lies. Maybe it was for the best. Suddenly, she remembered her mother, waiting in Novosibirsk, the birthday she had missed, the things she had wanted to tell her. But now, what could she even say? Can I call my mother? She asked Somov. Of course, he said, handing her the phone. Just don't tell her what happened yet, for your own safety. Veronika dialed the familiar number. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. Hello, Mom, hi. Veronika struggled to hold back her tears. I'll take the first flight tomorrow. I'm coming back for good. Can I stay with you for a while? What's happened, sweetie? Her mother's voice sounded worried. I'll tell you later, Veronika said, wiping a tear. It's a long story. When the call ended and she returned the phone to Somov, she suddenly felt a strange relief, as if the heavy burden she had carried for years had vanished. Maybe starting over wasn't so bad. She could return to Novosibirsk to her mother, maybe teach music again. It had always been her true calling, the one she had given up when she married Victor. She looked at the silver needle still clutched in her hand. Check your husband, and you'll understand everything, it seemed to say. 3 months later, Veronika sat at the piano in a Novosibirsk music school, listening to her new student, a 10-year-old girl, carefully playing for Elise. Sunlight fell across the keys, making them shine like pearls. Outside, the poplar trees rustled, dropping their fluff onto the pavement. All right, Masha. Veronika smiled as the little girl finished playing. But next time, pay attention to your left hand. It's a little behind. When her student left, Veronika walked to the window and took a deep breath. Life was slowly getting back to normal. After everything that had happened, she decided not to return to Moscow. The apartment had to be sold. Too many painful memories were tied to it. Instead, she bought a small 2-room apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Novosibirsk, not far from her mother's house, and returned to teaching music, her true calling, which she had once given up for her husband. Victor was never found. After the raid on Stas's warehouse, he seemed to have vanished completely. Rumor had it he had escaped abroad, maybe to Thailand or Bali, where Sidorov had connections. Sidorov himself was arrested 2 weeks later at his country house. He was now awaiting trial, which promised to be high-profile, involving top officials and businessmen. Veronika didn't follow the news. She had decided to let the past go and move on. Sometimes, at night, Victor still appeared in her dreams, the way he had been at the start of their relationship, young, smiling, with dimples and an honest gaze. Was he already a criminal then? Or had life broken him later? It didn't matter anymore. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Andrei Salmov.
Hi.
When you have a chance, check your email. Sent you something interesting. Veronika opened her email and saw a message from Andrei with a video file attached. Found it on one of Sidorov's servers. I think you should see this. She clicked the file. On the screen was Victor, tired, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. He sat in a dark room, looking straight at the camera. Veronika, if you're watching this video, it means it's all over. I don't know what they've told you about me. Maybe the worst, and maybe they'll be right. I really did work for Sidorov. I really distributed drugs. I betrayed everything I once believed in. I betrayed you. He took a deep, heavy breath and continued. But one thing I never betrayed, my love for you. That's the only real thing in my life for the past 15 years. I met you by chance, but I truly loved you. That's why I could never become the monster I was supposed to be while working for Sidorov. Victor paused, gathering his thoughts. When I was recruited back in college, I thought it would be temporary, easy money, interesting work. But it pulled me in like quicksand. And when I wanted out, it was already too late. Sidorov doesn't let people go. But you were my light, Veronika. With you, I remembered the kind of man I wanted to be. He smiled sadly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. People like me don't get that. I just want you to know, everything between us, it was real. At least on my side. Be happy, Veronika. You deserve better. The video ended. Veronika sat there, staring at the dark screen. What was it? One last attempt to manipulate her, or a sincere confession? She would never know the truth now. Her phone buzzed again. Andrei, what do you think? She typed, hesitating before sending her reply. Thank you for sending it. Now I can finally close this chapter. She left the school and walked slowly down the street, enjoying the warm June evening. Ahead of her was dinner with her mother, who proudly showed off her returned daughter, then a rehearsal with the amateur music group she recently joined, and maybe a cup of tea on the balcony before bed, looking out over the night city. Passing a small souvenir shop, she noticed a silver brooch shaped like a needle in the window, with an unusual eye-shaped loop, so much like the needle that had started all of this 3 months ago. Veronika stopped to look, then smiled and walked on. In her purse, in a little velvet pouch, she still had that same silver needle, given to her by the gypsy, Elena Vorontsova, to be precise. The police had wanted to take it as evidence, but, for some reason, changed their minds. Keep it as a memento, Salmov had said. And she did. That needle had changed her life. It had helped her see the truth, no matter how bitter. It had opened her eyes to everything she had been unwilling to notice for so many years. It had helped her understand who she really was and what she wanted from life. Veronika walked down the street and, for the first time in a long while, felt free. 15 years of marriage built on lies were behind her. Ahead lay a new life, her own life. And though it didn't start the way she had planned, it was real. No falsehoods, no deceit, no hidden secrets under the floorboards. The needle found the heart. She remembered the mysterious phrase from Victor's video. Perhaps that's exactly what had happened. The silver needle had found her heart. A real, living heart, ready to start over no matter what.